Chapter 9. Return to normal. Morning light crept through the curtains, pale and hesitant, painting thin stripes across the bedroom floor. Mara woke slowly this time, consciousness returning in gentle waves rather than the sharp, disorienting jolt of the evening before. The pain was still there, constant, dull throb in her side where the Minotaur's horns had pierced through, but it felt more manageable now, distant, like something her body was dealing with while her mind focused on other things. The warmth was still there too. Liana hadn't moved, still pressed against Mara's back, still holding her like she was afraid she might evaporate if she let go. Her breathing was deep and even, the rhythm of true sleep, and Mara found herself matching it without thinking. In, out, a shared meditation of sorts. For a moment Mara let herself just exist in this space, the weight of Liana's arm around her waist, the soft press of her forehead against the back of Mara's neck, the way their legs tangled together under the blanket, familiar despite the year apart, like muscle memory, like coming home. It was too easy to forget in moments like this, but the world outside was fractured and dangerous, that portals had opened and monsters walked the streets, that Mara herself had become something other, something that hissed and coiled and struck. Here in the quiet morning light, with Liana's warmth surrounding her, she could almost pretend they were just two people waking up together, normal, safe, but the ache in her side reminded her otherwise, as did the faint green pulse she could feel beneath her skin if she focused on it, cold and patient and waiting. Mara shifted slightly, testing her range of motion. A side protested immediately, sharp enough to make her wince, but bearable. She'd had worse. Well, no, she probably hadn't actually had worse, but pain was relative, and right now the ache in her ribs felt like a small price to pay for being alive, for being here, in her own bed, with Liana wrapped around her like she belonged there. "You're thinking too loud," Liana mumbled against the back of her neck, voice thick with sleep. Mara smiled despite herself. "Sorry, didn't mean to wake you. Liar, you shifted on purpose, but there was no heat in it, just sleepy affection." Liana's arm tightened around Mara's waist, pulling her back more firmly against her chest. "What time is it?" Mara squinted at the alarm clock on her nightstand, the red numbers blurry with other contacts. "Almost 8. We should get up." Neither of them moved. They lay there in comfortable silence for a few more minutes, both awake now but neither willing to break the bubble of warmth and safety they'd created. Outside, the city was waiting up distant traffic. The rumble of the bus on the corner, someone's car alarm going off 3 blocks away, the soundtrack of normal life continuing despite everything. Somewhere below, a neighbor was playing music, the bass thumping through the floor in a steady rhythm. Someone shouted something in Spanish, followed by laughter. Life going on, as if the world hadn't nearly ended yesterday. "I need to change your bandages," Liana said eventually, pressing a kiss to Mara's shoulder through the hoodie. "And you need to eat something. When's the last time you had food?" Mara tried to remember. The cafe. The coffee and croissant she'd barely touched before everything went to hell. Yesterday morning, I guess. "Jesus, Mara." Liana sat up carefully, the mattress shifting beneath them, and the sudden loss of warmth made Mara's skin prickle with goosebumps. "No wonder you feel like shit. Come on, food first, then medical attention." "I'm fine," Mara protested, even as her stomach chose that exact moment to growl loudly enough that they both heard it. Liana raised an eyebrow, and even with sleek-mussed hair and no makeup, even wearing one of Mara's old t-shirts, she was devastating. "Sure you are." 20 minutes later, Mara was sitting at her small kitchen table, wearing clean clothes, another borrowed hoodie, and a pair of her own sweatpants that Liana had helped her into with minimal embarrassment and only moderate pain. The process of getting dressed had been awkward and intimate in equal measure, Liana's hands careful and clinical as she'd helped Mara maneuver around the bandages, but their eyes had met more than once and something warm had passed between them. A promise, a question, neither of them ready to name it yet. The bandages had been changed, the wound cleaned and redressed with the first aid supplies Liana had apparently raided from Mara's bathroom cabinet. It still hurt like hell, but it looked better, less angry, more like something that would heal given time. The edges were already starting to knit together, which should have been impossible after just one night. But then again, a lot of things that should have been impossible were becoming Mara's new normal. Liana moved around the kitchen with easy familiarity, like she'd never left, like the past year hadn't happened. She knew where everything was new, that Mara kept the spatula in the drawer to the right of the stove, that the good butter was in the back of the fridge behind the condiments, that Mara preferred her eggs scrambled soft, not hot. She'd found eggs in the fridge, bread in the cabinet. The smell of cooking filled the small apartment simple, domestic, achingly normal. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, catching dust motes in the air and turning them into tiny stars. The old coffee maker burbled on the counter, filling the apartment with the rich scent of brewing coffee. Outside, someone was playing piano badly, but enthusiastically, the city's morning symphony. "You don't have to do this," Ma said, watching her work, watching the way Liana's shoulders moved under the borrowed shirt, the way her hair, still that startling silver white, caught the light. "I can make my own breakfast." "You can barely lift your arm without wincing," Liana replied, not looking up from the pan. She whisked the eggs with quick, efficient movements, then poured them into the butter-slicked pan with a satisfying sizzle. "Let me take care of you, just for today." "Just for today," Mara echoed softly. Liana glanced over her shoulder, and for a moment the mask slipped. Something vulnerable flickered across her face, hope and fear and longing all tangled together. "Unless you want me to stay longer, I will, if you want." The question hung in the air between them, heavy with everything they hadn't said. "What are we doing? What is this? Are we back together, or is this just crisis management? Can we really pretend the past year didn't happen? Can we start over? Or are we just picking up broken pieces?" Mara's throat tightened. A year ago, she would have had a sarcastic deflection ready, would have made a joke to break the tension, to keep things light, to avoid being vulnerable. But she died yesterday, or nearly died. She turned into something monstrous and killed a minotaur and woken up with Lia's arms around her like nothing had changed, even though everything had changed. She didn't have the energy for deflection anymore. "I want you to stay," Mara said quietly, "for as long as you're willing." Liana's shoulders relaxed. Tension Mara hadn't even noticed bleeding out of her. She turned back to the eggs, but not before Mara saw the smile, small and relieved and real. "Good, because I wasn't planning on going anywhere." She brought over 2 plates scrambled eggs, fluffy and perfect, toast golden browned and buttered. Orange juice from the carton Mara had forgotten was in the fridge. She'd even found the strawberry jam Mara liked, the expensive kind she saved for special occasions. The plates clinked against the table, and Liana slid into the chair across from Mara, their knees bumping under the small table. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that didn't need filling, the kind they used to have before everything fell apart. Mara hadn't realized how hungry she was until the food was in front of her, and then she was too busy eating to talk anyway. The eggs were perfect, creamy and rich. The toast crunched between her teeth. The orange juice was cold and sweet and cut through the heaviness of the butter. Simple, normal, perfect. Liana ate more slowly, and Mara caught her watching more than once. Not with judgment, just watching, like she was memorizing this moment, like she was afraid it might not last. "So," Liana said eventually, pushing her empty plate aside and wrapping both hands around her coffee mug, "what's the plan? Rest? Hide? Pretend yesterday didn't happen?" Mara set down her fork. "I want to go to the park." Liana blinked. "What?" "The park. For Tai Chi." She struggled to put it into words. "I want something normal, something that makes sense." Before everything, Tai Chi was helping. The breathing, the movement, the way tea flows, it was the only thing that made me feel like I had any control. I need that right now. "Mara, you can barely walk without limping. You think you can do Tai Chi?" "I think I need to try." Mara met her eyes, steady despite the fear churning in her gut. "I can't just hide in my apartment. I can't pretend this isn't happening. And I can't sit here doing nothing while my body does whatever the hell it's doing. I need to understand it. I need to learn control." Liana studied her for a long moment, then sighed. "Fine, but I'm coming with you." "You don't have to. I'm coming with you," Liana repeated firmly. "Non-negotiable. You almost died yesterday, Mara. I'm not letting you out of my sight." Mara wanted to argue, to insist she could handle herself, but the truth was she felt safer with Liana there. "Okay," she said softly. "Thank you." The walk to the park took twice as long as usual. Every step pulled at the wound in Mara's side, a sharp reminder that healing, even accelerated healing, wasn't the same as being whole. The morning air was crisp, almost cold, carrying the scent of exhaust and coffee and the distinctive smell of the city waking up. Autumn was settling in, turning the leaves gold and crimson, and they crunched under Mara's feet as she walked. By the time they reached the entrance, her face was pale and slick with sweat despite the cooler air. Her breath came shorter than it should have, and she had to stop twice, once to lean against a streetlight, once against a park bench to let the world stop spinning. Liana had offered to call a car 3 times, and 3 times Mara had refused. She needed to do this under her own power, needed to prove to herself that she could, that she wasn't broken, that whatever she was becoming, she was still herself. But Liana stayed close the entire walk, hovering without hovering, her hand a constant presence at the small of Mara's back or on her elbow, ready to catch her if she fell, ready to carry her if she couldn't make it. Mara wanted to be annoyed by the mothering, but the truth was it made her feel safe, cared for, like she mattered to someone. Stubborn as hell, you know that, Liana said quietly as they finally made it through the park gates. You say that like it's a bad thing. It is when you're bleeding through your bandages. Mara glanced down and swore. Red was seeping through the hoodie, a dark stain spreading across her side. Not much, but enough. It's fine. It's not fine. It will be. Mara straightened, ignoring the way her vision swam. I just need to move, need to practice. Master Liu said. I know what he said. Liana's voice was tight. But you're in no condition. I'm in exactly the condition I'm in. Mara nabbed her eyes, steady despite the exhaustion pulling at her bones. And standing here arguing about it isn't going to change that. So either come with me or don't, but I'm going to practice. For a moment she thought Liana might argue more, might insist they go back, call an ambulance, do something sensible. But then Liana's mouth twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. Still stubborn. Still me. Yeah. Liana's expression softened. You are. The park was quiet this early, just a few joggers in expensive, athletic-wearing dog walkers with their designer breeds and one old woman doing Tai Chi by herself near the fountain. The morning light turned everything golden, the grass, the trees, the woman's slow movements. It looked like a painting, peaceful, like the world wasn't full of monsters and chaos. The far corner where Master Li usually practiced was empty. Mara's heart sank. Of course he wasn't here. Why would he be? Maybe he was done with her. Maybe he'd realized she was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too much of a liability. Maybe watching her transform into a giant serpent had been enough to. There, Liana said quietly, pointing. Master Li stood near the bench under the old oak tree, moving through his forms with the same unhurried grace he always had, as if yesterday hadn't happened, as if the world hadn't nearly ended in blood and fire and broken concrete. His movements were water smooth, precise, each transition flowing into the next with a simplicity that belied the years of practice behind them. He must have sensed them approaching because his eyes opened, finding them across the grass. His expression didn't change, didn't show surprise or concern or anything at all, just that same serene calm that made it impossible to tell what he was thinking. Like looking at a still pond, you could see the surface but never what lay beneath. You came, he said as they drew close. Not a question, a statement. I wasn't sure I should, Mara admitted. Why? The question was so simple, so direct, that it caught her off guard. Because of what happened. Because I turned into something. Because I lost control. And Liu's gaze was steady, patient. And I thought maybe you wouldn't want me here anymore. Did I say that? No, but then why would you think it? He gestured to the space beside him. Come, practice. Mara glanced at Liana, who nodded encouragingly, then stepped into position. Her body protested immediately, the wound pulling. Muscles stiff from yesterday's violence, but she forced herself to breathe through it, to find her center the way Liu had taught her. She began to form basic Tai Chi, the same movements she'd been learning for days now, the slow circles and weight shifts and careful breathing. Public Tai Chi, safe Tai Chi, the kind anyone could learn from a video or a book. She made it through maybe 10 seconds before Liu's voice cut through her focus. Stop. Mara froze mid-movement. What are you doing? Liu asked, and there was something almost disappointed in his tone. Tai Chi. What you taught me. No. He stepped closer, adjusting her stance with a light touch to her shoulder. That is what I teach them. He gestured vaguely toward the rest of the park, the other practitioners, the normal people doing normal exercises. That is not what I teach you. Mara's breath caught. I don't understand. Yes, you do. Liu's hand moved to rest lightly over her heart, just for a moment, then dropped away. You must let your tea flow naturally, not the way I showed you, not the way books teach. Your way, the way your body knows. But I don't. Your body knows what it needs. Liu interrupted gently. Listen to it. Trust it. Let the tea guide you, not the other way around. He stepped back, returning to his own practice, leaving Mara standing there feeling lost and confused, and a hiss came softly this time. Not a warning, not a demand, just presence. A quiet reminder that something lived inside her now, coiled around her spine, woven into her bones. Mara closed her eyes, breathed, and instead of fighting it, instead of trying to force herself into the shades Liu had shown her, she just let go. Her body moved, not the circular, flowing movements of basic Tai Chi. this was different, lower, tighter, her spine curved in ways that should have been uncomfortable but felt natural, necessary. Her arms moved in spirals instead of circles, and her steps were gliding, weight-shifting in a pattern that mimicked something sliding rather than walking, snake-style. The form she touched during that moment of flow with Liana and Liu, the movement that came from somewhere deeper than memory, written into her flesh by whatever had happened in that alley. She didn't question it this time, just followed where the K led, trusting her body to know what it was doing even if her mind didn't understand. The world shifted. She could feel the channels Liu had talked about, meridians. He'd called them, lighting up like circuitry beneath her skin, energy flowing through her in patterns she was only beginning to sense. Not just her blood moving, not just her muscles working. Something else, something deeper, the kind moving through her like water, through riverbeds, finding the paths worn into her by what? Evolution, instinct, whatever the snake had left behind when it changed her. Her breathing deepened, slowed, in through her nose, out through her mouth, the rhythm matching the movement. Her heart rate slowing despite the exertion, everything synchronizing. The pain in her side faded to background noise. The exhaustion became irrelevant. There was only motion, only breath, only the steady flow of ki through channels that seemed to expand with each movement, growing wider, deeper, more defined. She felt herself sink lower, her center of gravity dropping. Her spine undulated in ways that should have been impossible for a human body. But she wasn't entirely human anymore, was she? Part of her was something else, something older, something that knew how to move like water, like wind, like a serpent through grass. Time became fluid. She didn't know if she'd been moving for minutes or hours. The world narrowed to breathe in motion and the steady, pulsing rhythm of ki flowing through channels she was only beginning to sense. She was aware distantly of the park around her. The old woman by the fountain had stopped to watch. A jogger had paused mid-stride. Liana stood frozen at the edge of the clearing, her expression unreadable, but none of it mattered. Only the movement mattered, only the flow. A hiss came then, but not as an intrusion, as part of the flow, as punctuation to the movement. She could feel it in her chest, in her throat, vibrating through her bones. Not a warning, not a threat, just acknowledgement, the snake recognizing itself in the movements. When she finally stopped, breathing hard, sweat soaking through her hoodie despite the cool air, she opened her eyes to find both Liu and Liana watching her. Liu's expression was unreadable as always, but something in his eyes suggested approval, recognition. It was impossible to tell, but he gave a single nod, slight enough that she might have imagined it. Liana looked troubled, her brow furrowed, arms crossed over her chest. She'd seen this before, the serpentine quality to Mara's movements, the way she seemed to flow rather than step, but seeing it again, in daylight, in a public park where anyone could see, there was something in her eyes that Mara couldn't quite read. Fear, sadness, or, better, Liu said simply. Then he returned to his own practice, dismissing them without another word. Mara stood there, chest heaving, body aching, but in a good way this time. The wound in her side still hurt, but the rest of her felt alive, energized, like she tapped into something fundamental and finally gotten it right. Her skin tingled, her blood sang. She felt more present in her body than she had in days. More herself, and less herself, both at once. That was Liana started, then stopped. You looked different, Mara supplied. Dangerous. Liana's voice was soft, almost sad. You looked dangerous, and beautiful, and nothing like the woman I fell in love with. The words hit like a physical blow. Mara opened her mouth to respond, to defend herself, to say something, anything. Liana. They both turned. A man stood at the edge of the clearing, tall, dark-haired. Sharp features set in an expression of barely contained irritation. Mara had never seen him before, but the way Liana's entire body went rigid told her everything she needed to know. Family. Sabine, Liana said, voice flat. A brother. The one she mentioned in passing. The one who tried to convince her to stay away from Mara. He looked nothing like Liana, harder edges, colder eyes, but they held themselves the same way. That particular kind of stillness that came from absolute confidence in their own power. His eyes flicked to Mara, briefly assessing, dismissive, then back to Liana. You need to come home, now. Liana's jaw tightened. I'm not going anywhere. The elders want to see you. He didn't even acknowledge Mara's presence beyond that initial glance, as if she were a piece of furniture. Irrelevant. They have questions. About where you've been. About your choices. And they can wait, Liana said, voice hard. No. Sabine's tone left no room for argument. They can't. This isn't a request, Liana. This is a summons. You know what that means. The air between them crackled with tension. Mara could see the conflict playing out on Liana's face. Duty versus desire, family versus whatever she and Mara were to each other now. If I refuse, Liana asked, though they both knew she wouldn't, then I drag you there anyway. And he nodded toward Mara, gets left behind. Or worse. Your choice. Liana's hands clenched into fists. You're threatening her. I'm stating facts. Sabine's expression didn't change. The elders want to see you. They want to know why you've been ignoring your duties for the past 3 days. Why you didn't come home last night. Why you're prioritizing her over your responsibilities to the clan. His gaze flicked to Mara again, colder this time. And yes, they want to know why you're associating with someone we explicitly told you to cut ties with. Someone you agreed to stay away from a year ago. Her name is Mara, Liana said through gritted teeth. I don't care what her name is. Sabine's tone was flat, bored even. She's not relevant to this conversation. You are. Your choices are. The fact that you've let yourself deteriorate to the point where he gestured vaguely at Liana, and Mara could see the insult land even if she didn't fully understand it. Barely maintaining your forms. When's the last time you actually trained? Properly trained, not whatever you've been doing playing house. Liana's jaw clenched. I've been fine. Have you? Sabine stepped closer, and Mara could feel the temperature drop, not metaphorically. Actual frost was forming on the grass around his feet. You walked away from your family, from your duty, from centuries of tradition and power. For what? A girl? He said it like it was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever heard. A baseline human who got lucky enough to awaken into something barely worth mentioning. Mara felt the words like a slap. Barely worth mentioning. Of course, to a clan of dragon shifters, a snake was nothing. Weak, common, the lowest tier of the food chain. Don't talk about her like that, Liana warned, her own power starting to flicker around her hands red and gold. Dragon fire barely contained. Why not? Sabine's expression didn't change. It's the truth. Snake shifters are a dime a dozen these days. Half the new awakenings are reptile class, and most of them are snakes. She's not special, Liana. She's not worth throwing away everything you are. She's worth more than you'll ever understand. Is she? Sabine's voice dropped lower, more dangerous, because from where I'm standing, she's a distraction, a liability, someone who's made you weak, someone who has made you forget what you're capable of. He paused, letting that sink in. The elders see it, too. They've been patient, waiting for you to come to your senses. But patience has limits. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. Sabine's eyes were hard. Your dragon clan, Liana, one of the last true shifters of the old bloodlines. You don't get to just walk away because you fell in love with some ordinary girl who happened to turn into a garden snake. The hiss rose in Mara's chest before she could stop it. Low, quiet, but unmistakable. Sabine's eyes faked to her, and for just a second, something that might have been interest crossed his face. Then it was gone, replaced by that same distance of coldness. See, even her instincts are basic. Territorial posturing. How very predictable. Enough. Liana's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. I'm not doing this with you. Not here. Not now. Then where? When? Sabine spread his hands. You can't avoid them forever, Liana. And the longer you wait, the worse it's going to be. They're willing to overlook certain indiscretions if you come home now. Recommit to your training. Remember your place. My place? As a member of the Dragon Clan. As someone who matters. He let that hang in the air, the implication clear. Unlike her, Liana was shaking now, but whether from rage or something else, Mara couldn't tell. And if I refuse... Sabine's expression hardened. Then they'll make the choice for you. You'll be summoned formally, and when you don't come, because we both know you will, they'll send someone to retrieve you. Someone less inclined to be polite about it. He glanced at Mara again, and whatever happens to your friend in the process won't be their concern. The threat was clear. Come willingly, or they'd come for her, and Mara would be collateral damage. You bastard, Liana whispered. I'm being practical. Sabine's voice didn't soften. You spent a year doing what we asked, a year proving you understood your duty. You walked away from her, committed to your training, to the clan. He gestured between them with barely contained disgust. And you throw it all away in 3 days. 3 days back with this distraction and you're right back, where you started. Worse, actually, at least before you had the sense to choose correctly. Liana looked at Mara, something desperate and broken in her eyes. I'm sorry, she said softly. I'm so sorry. Mara reached out and took Liana's hand, squeezing hard. No, her voice was steady despite the fear churning in her gut. You're not leaving me. Not again. I'm coming with you. We face this together. Mara. Together, Mara repeated firmly, lacing their fingers and holding on tight. Whatever they want to say, whatever they think of me, we do this together. Don't apologize to her, Sabine said flatly. She's not worth it. The words should have stung, should have hurt, but Mara found she didn't care what Sabine thought, didn't care what the Dragon Clan thought. She'd faced down a Minotaur. She died and come back and woken up with Lyanna's arms around her. She wasn't the scared girl who'd watched Lyanna walk away a year ago. She wasn't even the woman who nearly bled out in an alley fighting a snake monster. She was something else now, something new, and she was done being dismissed. You're right, Mara said, her voice calm. I'm not worth it. Not to you, not to your clan, not to anyone who measures worth by bloodlines and power. She squeezed Lyanna's hand tighter. But I'm worth it to her, and that's enough. Sabine's eyes narrowed, and for just a moment, Mara saw something flicker across his face. Surprise, maybe, or respect, but it was gone too quickly to be sure. Brave words from someone who could barely walk to the park this morning. Brave or stupid, Mara shot back. Take your pick. Mara, Lyanna warned, but there was something in her voice that wasn't entirely displeasure, almost like pride. Sabine looked between them, his expression unreadable. Then he turned on his heel, frost crunching under his feet. Follow me. The elders are waiting, and I wouldn't recommend testing their patience further. He started walking, clearly expecting them to follow. Lyanna looked down at the joined hands, then up at Mara's face. You don't have to do this. You could stay here. Stay safe. Safe. Mara let out a short laugh. I haven't been safe since the thing bit me in the alley. Hell, I probably haven't been safe since the first portal opened. Safety isn't an option anymore. Lyanna, all we have is choice. She met Lyanna's eyes, steady and sure. And I choose this. I choose you. I choose us facing whatever comes next together. Lyanna's eyes were bright, suspiciously bright, and she blinked hard. You're going to get yourself killed. Probably. Mara smiled, despite everything. But at least I'll die interesting. It pulled a laugh from Lyanna, small and broken but real. You're insane. So I've been told. Mara tugged her hand gently. Come on, let's go meet your family. What's the worst that could happen? They could kill you. See, interesting. They started walking, following Sabine's retreating figure across the park. Behind them, Master Liu continued his practice, moving through his forms with patient precision. He didn't look up, didn't acknowledge their leaving, but Mara felt his presence like a weight at her back, steadying, grounding. And so it begins. His voice drifted across the grass, barely audible over the sounds of the waking city. Mara didn't look back, just kept walking. Lyanna's hand warm in hers, the morning sun on her face, and the cold green pulse of something ancient and patient coiling beneath her skin. Whatever came next, they'd face it together, and that, somehow, was enough.